Dana, at the last meeting, we talked about the existing plan and where we thought its strengths were and where we thought it needed things. So now what we're gonna do is talk about maps today, and we're gonna talk about the zoning map and its legibility and where the issues are and, understanding it. And, then we're gonna talk about, well, we have quite an agenda today, but, we're gonna
Okay.
Yeah, there's flood zone maps too that are really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And they give all of the heights of everything everywhere. Because when it was great, that's how we knew that Nantucket is 16 feet above sea level, which is so exciting.
Yeah, I know, that made me very happy too. So anyway, that's. Yeah.
We already have a lot of the overlays that you're talking about
Do you?
from the county, from the wetlands, from the Fed.
Yeah. Yeah, so what we do is get an inventory, they're not showing up they're not on the website anywhere, are they? Are they on
No.
file? Okay, I'll catch up with you on this, since that's my job this month, is to become the
Okay,
queen of maps. How are you? Good, how are you? I'm standing, I'm vertical. That counts. I think we actually have finished bylaws. Oh, where they're coming, you've always noticed that. What happens to me is I'm not good at, I need to be taking notes while I read them, and I wasn't because I was busy with some other stuff. So I'm glad you're here to note that. Because I looked at the version that had your comments on it and get this. I think we can finish that today. That would be really, really good. Definitely a challenging agenda. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. Well, with the timeline, I just want to get a timeline for what I'm gonna try to get some people to commit to particular, working on particular areas. Like Jim, I think, should work with us on, should be the zone, obviously. In economic development. What I want to do is, apart from being the, person who kind of gets it all put together, is I want to focus on maps and information. Really
Large topic.
It's a large topic, and ultimately, I think the two people probably need to work together on that, but, I'd like whoever they bring in to be somebody who's interested in that. But we need something on water. What I said was, I didn't wanna make anybody mad, so what I did is I sent an email today to Nathan's, and when I only got did two, because I wanted to do it individually. I did one to Joy, and I said I know who one applicant is, but I don't know who the other one is, and what I would say is that I really feel like water is one of the principal topics, and so whoever comes in, it would really be helpful to me. It would have an interest and expertise on water. So I did that for the two of them, and then I'll write another, I'll write letter, a note to Omar. And, I'll write to people. There's a lot, by the way. So. I don't know when I thought was good, the last one. Was about, this last meeting was about that. We're not cohesive as a group yet. We're not all playing this election, but we're also not obviously. So I recommend that. But then that's awful.
I'll take what I could get.
Pictures. No, this is all Fletcher's stuff, and that must be Fletcher's. Fletcher leaves a lot of stuff around. I forgot to print, special use permit and stuff from Janet. Yes. Yeah. It is. And apparently, and they didn't do what they were supposed to. They haven't done things. There we go. It's a mess. That's a mess. And Janet called me and said, I got a way. We did the application directly that they, I don't really did over the outdoor function. That they're not together. Yep. Hey, Bob. And then the other issue is that, they need to, we've got to find out the neighbors all are supposed to receive copies, and I don't know. So this needs to be revised always. That's gonna have a heart attack, but. That's great. Finalize everything so they can, we're getting really big. Yeah, well, I mean, they can do the revisions pretty quickly. Yeah, well, right. Okay, let's see what the strategy with that, let's see if we can move it along, but make them do it right. Yeah, make them specify the revision. Yeah. Yep.
Hey, let's go.
Hello there. Good. Bringing that up, there was a face on that.
Yes. Let's do it right because.
We have a couple of things that need to be done properly, and we're getting slowly pointed in that direction.
We'll do it. Towns do it.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm
too.
impressed.
Yeah,
I thought that they were doing it.
well, they weren't always doing it before. There seemed like there was a lot of floundering.
So to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easier just.
Yep, one step forward, one step back, and we're moving along. Yep. Yep. Hey,
Everybody know?
yep, hey, Jerry.
Hey,
You're here from the big city, huh?
big city.
Haven't you been in up north? No,
No, actually, I haven't.
you're not here.
I'm up there a lot, but.
Oh, listen, whenever, you should call me because I've got this, you can call me because I'll print for you.
Because it was, there's a computer. So it makes no sense. I got it. But it wasn't printing, and so I never print till last names.
Yeah, well, if you need something.
Just updating it now.
Yeah.
I think this is a special.
Well, this thing is so incomplete that it's not
But I don't,
useful,
I go up. I
this
go up
thing
like
is
twice a
not
month.
by any means.
Unless I have like a.
Yeah. Yeah, this-
Not at all. Still trying to sell. Yeah, that's kind of. Other things going on around here. Some of it. It's just outside.
Working on your house. Yeah.
I think there, yeah, so. It just.
Yeah, but that's- Well, on the other hand, this one is because it accelerates internal. Yeah.
That's going where they're not running ads, or getting that done.
I'm sorry, what?
I can't get video to work.
Okay.
You're being recorded.
Okay, all right, we're recorded now.
But I'm gonna be quiet. I couldn't get my printer to work. I had to sit there. I think Friday the 13th.
I'm pleased with the progress. Well, you know, whenever you have a printing out printer that is this little laser printer, then it'll do 3,000 pages. That was mine before. No.
So, I'm not saying when we get
All right.
into this, like, not to go back, you know, you get all the finish work and.
Okay, so the TV is currently on the fritz, but we are being recorded and people will be able to hear us on Zoom. Am I correct on that? They'll be able to hear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I have like.
Oh, I got 1 minute.
You got another one of these for John?
Yeah. There should be one for everybody.
Do you need one more?
No,
Yeah. And then we have one that I'd like to already skip.
Pass it on down, I'll take that.
Too.
Okay.
We got it. We're-
Everybody has one.
Okay, we've all got it done.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Okay, well,
Fletcher's on.
it's now officially 6 according to my laptop, so let us begin the 5th of May, 2025 meeting of the Onancock Planning Commission. So I'll call that to order. Okay, so shall we take attendance?
Sure. Commissioner Adler,
Here.
Commissioner Greer, Commissioner Holdren,
Present.
Commissioner Labadie, Commissioner McGowan,
Here.
Commissioner Wetzel.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, so may I have a motion to approve the 8th April minutes? And motion to approve, so moved.
No, yeah.
Okay, a second on that. Okay, John, a second date. Okay, any discussion or revisions on the 8th April minutes? If not, then let's vote to approve the minutes. All in favor? Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. All right. So we're gonna run through a bunch of old business here, and it would be really great if we could finish the bylaws today. It would make me really happy. So let us,
Am I on? I don't really want to be on, but okay, let's go over here.
So what we have is 2 versions. One is the accepted version, and then a red line version that has some comments from Cindy and from Matt. And Cindy has informed me that she has noticed a few discrepancies. Do you want to bring those up now?
Sure. In section 3-251 membership.
there was one suggestion about after these terms, the next member shall serve for 4 years with alternating expiration dates of their terms. Did we decide to take that out?
Okay, wait a minute, let me go.
Page 10 and page 6 are the two I'm comparing.
Yeah,
After these terms, the next member shall serve 4 years with alternating expiration dates of their term.
Yeah. that was assuming that we,
Yeah, it's missing from page 6.
and that's what I'm assuming, that one of the things we have not done is people haven't drawn lots for the length of their term. Because we wanted, I thought the consensus was, I believe, that we would do 1, 2, and 3. Am I correct about that,
Yeah.
Matt? Yeah. And so, what I'd like to do is, yeah, that's okay.
There's one more correction, but
Okay, hang
I'm
on.
gonna do
That, what I would suggest is that we do that, can we do that at the end of the meeting? All right, we'll get our terms, we'll draw lots for the terms. Okay,
Isn't that something the town council needs to do?
that's a good question. Does the town council need to do that? They appoint us, so
For 4
they need
years?
to appoint us for 4 years. But what we wanted to do, right, was we were gonna try to spread out the appointment so that there wasn't a complete turnover in 4 years. So do we want to get approval to do that from the town council, to do it ourselves? Or is that something that we should do, is ask town council for approval that?
I'm automatic, you know, it's,
Yeah,
it's my turn.
automatic and I'm
Right.
4.
I think council.
Okay, good. Let's do that at the end of the meeting and then we'll give it to them and they can approve it. Okay, good
The
path
other-
forward. Sorry, go ahead.
The other thing I noticed was on page 11. And this may have been changed and I just don't know it, but at the page 11 and the first paragraph, we had suggested 3 consecutive meetings within 12 months. Did we not want to do that? Does it matter?
Did we, was in one and then not in the other? Is that what?
Yeah.
Well, it was 3 meetings in a year. And the question was, did they have to be consecutive meetings before we ask people to step down, or can they
No,
just miss 3 meetings a
No.
year?
I thought there was nothing about consecutive, and I thought it was planned meeting.
Ah, okay.
Remember, we had that discussion about the calendar. And I also thought it was 2, but you know, if you have to miss 2, so third.
Right.
You're 3 strikes and you're out, so to speak.
Excuse me, let me turn this off.
So that's what I thought the conversation was. That it was, there was no mention about it being consecutive. It was a total, because they're unexcused absences,
Right.
not just absences.
So it was 3 unexcused absences and they don't have to be consecutive.
Or 25% of the planned or scheduled meetings for the year is what I remember.
Yeah, that's in here somewhere too.
I don't know how the consecutive works. You could miss every other meeting.
Yeah, and it actually,
But up to, yeah, right,
If
exactly.
if it's the way it's worded, you could miss every other meeting and still be good.
Yeah,
Game
Yeah.
the system, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Let me look, Cynthia.
it's actually in the clear copy. I was wrong, but somewhere in here, there is that 2 or 25% too.
All right, let's see where it is.
It's on page 11, under item 4 at the bottom.
Yeah,
So page 8.
but that's electronic
That's
participation.
electronic.
That only applies to electronic participation, not to
Oh, okay.
attendance.
Yeah. All right. Well, we need to make a decision about how we're treating that. So is it 3 unexcused absences in a year? Or 3 consecutive unexcused absences?
We don't say anywhere in
Well-
here anything about excused and unexcused.
I have the understanding it was 3 in a year.
3 in a year.
And
Okay, so we
I
take out
agreed because I
consecutive.
knew I was gonna miss 2 when I agreed to do this.
And then 25 or
Or
25%
25%,
of the scheduled meetings.
right? Because that would also
Yeah.
include public hearings then, right?
Yes, it would, but.
Yeah.
Well,
But it's more of a, if there's a series of ad hoc scheduled added, that wouldn't, that kind of gives people a little more leeway.
Wait a
Okay.
minute,
Attendance.
we don't meet every month, right? How many total meetings do we have?
Huh?
No, we don't. We miss some
We-
months
We have a
Oh, that's
schedule,
right.
because of holidays. How many?
Because of
total?
holidays.
right? And
So 10 meetings a year?
we have a schedule. We actually approved a schedule.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have that somewhere, so it's not.
I'm just saying, does 25% work out to be the same as 3 or not?
Oh.
We need-
No, it doesn't.
Total.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, quarter of. nine.
Be 3.
Yeah,
About 3. It works out to be about 3.
33.3%.
Can we just say 3 and leave
Yeah.
it with that?
Sure.
Leave it at that, please?
Yeah.
We need to have both.
Sure.
Yeah. let's-
Okay.
Okay.
Which
No, sounds like it's not.
I would just say plan
Well, they're all scheduled. I mean,
or scheduled, yeah.
I don't know.
If I'm in the hospital recovering from a heart attack, I don't know that I would care about coming to the planning commission. Don't get me wrong. It's important.
You can do remote.
I could.
You can do remote. I know.
Right.
I know.
But
I
where,
know.
but where I'm going is, I can think of instances where it's reasonable to expect you not to be here. And there's some text in here that says that the commission can say whether it's a reasonable missing or not. And let me find that.
So what
That's
we're
on page 8 in remote participation.
it's on in remote
But
participation.
it's only in remote,
Yes.
Yeah.
so that if,
What we're trying to avoid is people just saying, I don't feel like going tonight.
oh, I agree, I agree.
But it's also permissive. We may request someone be
If-
removed.
If the word may is in there, I'm good.
So unless we're
Okay.
mad at you for some reasonable reason, hopefully.
I can think of a lot of reasons why you would be.
Okay.
I've got one other picky point.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Page 8.
God bless you.
Page 8, under remote participation, it's 3 little i's. The member's principal residence is more than 60 miles from the meeting location is a reason for remote participation. That one just puzzles me. Why would someone be appointed if they lived more than 60 miles from an Hancock?
There wouldn't be.
Because the rules,
well, it just says they have to be a real property owner.
right,
Or it can be surrounding locations, I think, I'm not sure if that's in our bylaws. It's in our bylaws or just the code. Anyway, that just seems to me ridiculous. I was wondering if we could drop that.
Okay.
What do you think?
Where are we on 8?
Page 8. These are the conditions that the people couldn't participate. Temporary or permanent disability. Medical condition of a family member is number 2, and then number 3, the member's principal residence is more than 60 miles from the meeting location.
and
That's almost as, I don't know why that's in there, but,
Was that in the original draft?
This is the
Where did
original
that come
draft, I
from?
think. We didn't have a remote participation, did we, Matt?
no, we put this in and this may be,
I don't remember.
Well, it's lifted from somewhere.
it's lifted from somewhere. And so what we ought to do is remove that because they,
I think our attorney.
oh, okay. So let's remove that.
That's fine.
Okay, so then it'll just be 3.
Renumbered Roman X.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, that's it.
all right.
I have one quick item back on page 11.
Bless you guys. My memory for this has been like a sieve. I read it. and
I had to write it down. It's just very minor, but.
Yeah.
That section I said, under item 4, at the very bottom, below where it says in red 25%, there should just be a added back in. A was deleted, a person in the blue text.
Oh, okay.
Just minor, but
That's fine.
that jumped out.
All right.
at me.
Okay. Is that it, everybody? Yeah?
Yep.
Do you think we could, do we need to vote separately to accept the changes?
Oh, it can be in the same motion.
It can be in the same measure? All right, I'd like, someone to make a motion about, accepting the changes and approving the bylaws.
So moved. I move that we accept the bylaws as with the suggested amendments from this evening.
Second.
Okay, we got a second. Any further discussion on this? Okay, let's vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yay. Okay, we now have bylaws. Very good. Thank you, everybody. Okay, the next item is just brief. It's FOIA training, and who needs to still do it? I do, because I was sick when I was supposed to go down to Eastville. So that's one of my projects for this month. Has everybody done their FOIA training, either online?
Yes.
Okay, everybody's done it. I'm the only ne'er-do-well. So, all right, that's all we need to know.
I did mine for town council, so.
Yeah, you're fine. So I'm the only one left and I will get that done this month. Okay. The next item of business is discussing a little further the timeline for the comprehensive plan and thinking about a draft calendar. And what I would like to do is see us have a we talked about public input really of some sort of rough document where they can make comments beginning in mid to late September. And I'd like to hold to that. But before then, we have a process where I would very much like to see some deadlines for getting new data, doing research, or, pulling together the issues for various topics. And so part of this timeline for the calendar is also asking people to step up and take principal responsibility for some of the sections that need to be included in the plan. So maybe we'll start by talking about that a little bit. I have, we have the town council is going to choose between 2 applicants for the 7th and final position. And I have suggested, and I'll suggest publicly here, that I'm hopeful that whoever is appointed will be somebody who has a particular interest in water issues, because water is going to be, I think, is going to show up in lots of aspects in the plan, both in terms of municipal water and infrastructure, recreation, and environmental stewardship. So I'm hoping that will take place. I don't know that it will, but by the end of this month, we will have a 7th member. But I would really like 1 or 2 people to sort of take the lead on a few specific topics that we know are going to come up and where we need to do some research based on what was in the previous plan. One of them is zoning, and Jim's going to hate this, but he knows more about zoning than anybody on this board. And I'm really hoping that he's willing to sort of take the lead on zoning and what needs to happen in terms of updating zoning
Plan.
with the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Yes. So the next one is economic development, which we all agreed, based on my notes from the last meeting, that economic development was probably the weakest part of the existing plan. It had sort of a general policy, but it had no specific recommendations for priorities for town council to consider. That part was blank. And in conversations, an informal conversation with Paul, he said he was interested in being in sort of taking the lead on this, but it's a big topic. And so what I'd like to know if there's anybody else in this group that would like to work with him on the question of, on the matter of economic development. Do you want to do that? Okay, so that's good. I see myself at this point as being sort of the ringmaster and being the person who kind of pulls everything together and gives it a uniform tone. And I also would like to take the lead in developing a much more comprehensive set of maps, which we'll talk about more this evening. And I'm, going to develop more expertise on working on GIS. So I would like to, and I'm also willing to start pulling together demographic data, basic demographic data on the community now, so I can share it with you all. So that's what I sort of see my immediate role as. And then as stuff starts to come in, some conversations that we have in July and August, I would like to use that to create a simple document that reflects what we think should be in the plan that then can be taken to the community outreach so that people have something to respond to, right? That would just be very simple that said, so we're looking at economic development. These are some issues and some things that we've identified so far, and get their responses to it. So that would probably take place in July and August, with the idea that we would start to get some public input in September. Does that seem like a?
Could I suggest also that we develop a document showing what has been achieved from the previous plan?
Yes.
And share that at the same time, because people need to know what has been done and, can hence drop out of the plan.
Right. Okay. Keep me remind me on that, and maybe actually, you could actually work
I'm
on
happy to
that.
work on it with Matt if you're
Yeah.
agreeable, Matt.
That would be great, because it would be great and say, this is what we did that was a policy thing, and this is what we did based on the, on the previous plan, and then sort of give people a sense about direction.
Just the Sunset Park is in there.
Right.
That's been accomplished.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Okay. Okay, let me make a note. Okay. Excuse me while I go back real quick to a couple of my past notes. The required part of the plan includes a transportation plan. And a lot of that will come from VDOT. Am I correct about that, Matt? Okay. What I think we can add to it maybe is it probably will not include stuff about, will it include stuff about pedestrian, sidewalks and other pedestrian right-of-ways, and also things like bicycle or alternative? Would it include?
Or is the wish list for that type of thing?
Yeah, or if we said, for example, one of our policies would be to encourage non-motor transportation within town, right? Would be that, and then we would say a step would be, further development of bike paths where possible, or something like that. Now, do they do that in the transportation plan, or is that something that we have to do? Okay.
In reading that section, I was struck by the contrast between the fact that we can't fund the little bit of sidewalk we need down at the wharf to connect those two sections. And yet our plan says that we're going to improve roads like Warren Street, which of course is next to my house. So I'm very familiar with that. if we can't, to me, I would like to see the plan be realistic versus just a complete wish list. You know, if we can't afford a piece of sidewalk, how on earth are we gonna pave 4 or 5 streets?
Mm-hmm.
I don't, just what I'm throwing out there.
Well, I think that kind of stuff goes into the discussion as we sort of talk about this stuff, you know, what can we recommend? I mean, I think it would be a good goal to say that we want to promote non-automobile traffic in town, but we have to make it safe, right? So what does that mean? You know, sometimes it can mean things like traffic bumps and crosswalks.
Yeah,
Right.
and when we have discussed, I think crosswalks are in the planning.
Yeah, yeah. So, I don't know if anybody wants to take a particular interest in that or whether, you know, I could just work with Matt on that particular issue.
Just in response to Cindy, the value of having a wish list in the plan is if money becomes available, you've got a plan. You're
Yeah.
not scrambling to get it in the plan because there's a pot of money available.
It's
So,
aspirational.
you know, it's aspirational, but it pays off if it's there.
I see what you're saying. I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah,
to me, our aspiration is more along sidewalks than roads, but
Yeah,
because that's what I hear on town council is we need sidewalks in certain places.
Right.
But that's a good point. Thank
well, we
you.
can make that aspirational, right, as part of saying that we want to promote non-automobile traffic in town as much as possible. If we decided we wanted to go that route, then, you know, then we say that, you know, we need, the following things need to happen and whether we can,
To support that objective.
yeah, to support that objective, right? So, okay, another thing that's required, element of the plan is, a discussion about designated areas in the locality for the implementation of measures to promote the construction, rehabilitation, and maintenance of affordable housing. That's actually required under the state law. The last plan was notable for its complete absence of imagination or sort of thinking about this in any useful way. And let's see what else. We also, water quality protection has also become a required element, which we'll have to put in. Elective elements that we might want to work on are systems of community service facilities, historical areas, capital improvements, stuff like that. That stuff is on page 14 of the Virginia Planning Association documents. If you want to go back and take a look at what these optional things are, and some of them are things that, given interests in the town, we might want to take the lead on, and one of those might be thinking about historic areas or recreational areas in some kind of package. I hate to, I will tell you that I think some of the discussion and wish list for tourism is not based on any realistic assessment of what the town at this point is capable of and not capable of. But I do think that the comprehensive plan needs to think about some of those sorts of issues since they keep coming up in town council over and over. Right. So I don't know what you guys think of that as a potential topic, or whether it can be, that can be folded into cultural assets, protecting and promoting cultural assets or something like that.
Wouldn't part of that also be economic development?
That is economic development.
So
It is economic
I
development.
don't think it's I don't think it's siloed is what I'm saying.
Okay. But it's not all economic development,
No.
by any means. I mean, I think, for example, making sure that there are, you know, the playground at Northeast is not a tourist attraction, but it's important to the historic Northeast,
Sure,
right?
sure. But that's what I'm saying. I'm not siloing it into one area.
Mhm.
I'm saying, oh, that's an overriding issue, I think that we should all be cognizant.
Okay, well, what I'm kind of interested, what else do you think? Jim, what do you think of this as a potential focus for something like this as being a potential focus of the comprehensive plan?
I was looking at the map.
Yeah,
What was the question again? Sorry.
no, that's all right. Look at the map. It had to do with, we've got a couple people, I'm trying to get people to express interest or interest in working on topics like that are associated with quality of life issues in the
Right.
community. That's basically it. And it could be, maybe we want to call it quality of life. That's true, but I think there's some agreement that, and we could, when we get some community input on it, then we would have some sense about how the community defines quality of life.
Okay, give you an example, we're on a corner and we see every day the same people drive in a 25-mile-an-hour zone, 50 to 60 miles an hour. Nobody's ever checked them, nobody's ever given them a ticket that I'm aware of. And apparently there's nothing we can do about it. Speed bump, slow down signs, slow children, whatever it could be. I mean, we got people now doing it in ATVs. Got people doing it on motorized bicycles, and we got people doing it in trucks and cars. I went to the same people over and over, it happens all the time. And that's a quality of life
Yeah,
for me.
okay.
But what is there to do about it? And I'm sure I'm not unique in that, and neither is our street and corner unique in town. So what do we do? How does that work
What street is that?
currently?
Mhm.
Lee is a drag strip for a few people. And
Hmm.
Kerr is.
So is Johnson. Johnson's unreal.
Just tell me.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's a problem. Is that part of the but is that part of a transportation plan?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Imagine other people do.
yeah.
How can we slow these people down? And what about golf carts? Right, because you got some electric, some motorized. There were like 6 kids on one last weekend and they almost tipped it over. Trying to turn it around and currently,
Mm-hmm.
it went up on 2 wheels. And it was still April,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so it's just like, what happens? And if you ask people all over town, I think you get some input on that.
Well, I think we could make, right. Well, I think it's up to us to define it, right, for this community. Get this community to define what it thinks is important for quality of life issues. Is it green space? Is it traffic control and reducing the amount of traffic? Is it, is it, community events? What is it? Is it, just making sure everybody mows?
When we
Right.
did the workshop for it's against the 2020 plan, we did
Mhm.
2019. We got a lot of those issues raised, so maybe we can keep it a placeholder and when we have the workshop.
Right.
We can
Okay.
see what people come in with and assign a name to it.
Okay, good.
On the list in our notebooks, on the historic areas and areas for urban renewal and other treatment, I think for our town in particular, the history is particularly important to a lot of people. And so I can see that as being something we might want to address in the plan as to how to preserve the historic aspects of the town.
Yeah, I'd like to define it broadly though, so that it includes more than the core, than the downtown core. There's, yeah. So that that more people feel like I said, the historic Northeast has more of a buy-in and we think about what matters to them in terms of historical, their history. Okay. Well, it could be that, for that, do we need someone to take a look at the, existing account of the history and, maybe do some update on it, maybe do an update on it.
I'll give that a try.
Okay,
And if you need help, Cynthia,
Be interested to.
call her.
Okay.
Just, you know,
yeah,
Well, we can work together on it.
yeah,
figure we'll all be working together
yeah.
anyway.
You want to get connected to zoning? I was just gonna say, what are you? Okay. I just feel like if we really pull together maps, GIS maps in a creative way, that it's going to give us the ability to see things that we haven't been able to see in the town. You know, that if we put some of these topics together, we're just going to see stuff. Okay. So I think what I would like to do is to be able to produce some kind of fairly simple document that outlines what we think needs to be or ought to be in the plan. And that this simple thing that would be no more than a couple pages long would then be something that goes out to the community sessions. And we had talked, so what I would really like to do is to sort of hash that out in July and August, maybe, so that we can put some kind of document together and we can begin to plan some sessions. I'm going to talk to Thelma about pulling together some community sessions with one or two of us in the Northeast to go through all of this, but we can try to go neighborhood by neighborhood. We can also try some larger gatherings in a couple of locations. We can do something in here, something like that. Okay. Am I missing something that you are? So like I said, I think water is coming as an issue. Am I missing something else that you feel needs to be a particular topic of interest? I mean,
No, but it would help to have an outline
okay,
as soon as possible, so
Mhm.
with
Okay.
people assigned to it, and we can kind of fill in the blanks.
all right. Let me do that. And what I'll do is, and I do think we're gonna have to have a commitment to some real discussions about housing. So, okay.
So are you thinking of a timeline, a particular time when you want us to accomplish our work?
Well, why don't we say, I mean, it's early May. And why we could use June as a chance to report and talk about where we're finding challenges, right? Or what we're learning. And then in July and August, what I'd like to do is assemble some kind of rough document, and then we'll work on getting the sessions together.
So then that means, because we had spoken about, it wasn't me, but it was I think a good perception that people are out in the summer.
Right,
So that September would be the right time. And that's consistent with what you were
right.
suggesting.
That's
but
why,
But that September would be the right time to have the people come in.
right.
And because the critical mass will be back.
Okay. All right. Well, what I'll do is pull together a document from this. And this gives us the beginnings of a timeline. And then what we'll do as it gets closer, we can pull together a timeline for writing and completion. But let's just see if we can let's set short deadlines and more simple tasks first, so that we're not overwhelmed and
And you'll have that for the June meeting to
Yep.
discuss?
I will. In fact, as soon as I rough something up, I'll send it to everybody. Okay. And so,
And then just keep in mind, I did look at the calendar for our meetings. We don't have a scheduled meeting in July or September.
right.
Keep that in mind.
I think we need a meeting we're gonna need a meeting in September. Can we schedule a meeting that's away from, other than the first Monday? Yeah, Okay, could we agree to schedule a September meeting for the next week, the next Monday after Labor Day? Yeah, okay.
Do you want to schedule one in July also? Because we're skipping from June. to
I know, we're
August.
skipping from June to August. Are you guys feeling like you're gonna want to talk about this as you're doing the work? I mean, this is to some extent, yeah, hopefully. I mean, this is, to some extent, this first part of this is just kind of feeling each other out, and it's almost like a seminar. We have to sort of do some writing to be able to talk to each other. Do you want to try to do something the second week in July? Second Monday in
July
July.
7th.
Yeah, July 7th.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you gonna be out of town?
It looks like, it's not confirmed yet, but it's playing.
And we won't be violating, are we violating any rules if we do some of our discussion with email as we round
Yes.
robin document? That would be that
Yes.
would be, that's what I thought.
Yes.
That would be a violation. That takes away an easy solution to,
Yeah,
so we need a contingent July meeting.
okay.
Well, the first Monday is July 7th. So that would be the regular meeting date.
That'd be the regular meeting day.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
They might assume- So,
okay. Well, we'll as long as we have a quorum, we're A-okay, and we can even continue the work. We just can't make formal decisions. So, all right.
if you can get a date, September,
8th. Yep.
Thank you.
but if you can zoom in, they can still participate, still vote.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just that for a quorum, it has to be warm bodies in person. I don't know why. That's what's in the bylaws. Sorry, I have to turn this down.
We presume it's so that the actual access, otherwise things could be remote and.
Yeah.
You know,
Biggest university in the United States is entirely remote.
no, not entirely.
University of Phoenix.
Well, University of
Ugh.
Phoenix,
I know.
I mean, there are
Yeah.
lots of, there are lots of universities.
Let's not use them for a model.
But
Yeah, you're just
Oh, no,
for the
no, I
point of
understand. I
discussion.
understand.
Okay,
there's Walden and all sorts of people who are,
Just saying.
yeah,
wise guy.
doesn't
Okay.
mean it's good. It just exists.
Okay. Okay. Process for sharing early information on proposed development, zoning requests, et cetera. We actually have an example of that tonight that we're starting to get material. We received some material today. What I want to know is whether you want this. My question is, do you, when an application comes in or we get other stuff ahead of time, do you want it to be simply attached to the agenda? It should be attached to the agenda anyways, or do you want to know about this as soon as it comes into town council's office, or are you happy with just getting it as an attachment to the agenda?
We should know about it as soon
As soon as possible? Okay.
they're not simple issues necessarily.
No, it gives you a chance to, so that's what I would say is when an application comes in or something like that, if you could go ahead and send them to us. And then we'll also attach them to the agenda so
Okay.
that we'll have it. And then it also means that certain simple things, like if we notice that something is incomplete, we might have a shot at getting them to work on it before it comes to a formal meeting. Okay. Now,
I would just like to say that it's good to get it as soon as it comes out, but by the time it gets to the meeting, there should be a staff report
okay,
explaining the application, pros and cons, recommendations, that type of thing. And tonight is a good example of that, where we
Yeah.
have what seems to be an incomplete application. And no real additional information to go
Right.
with it, so.
Right.
Suggest,
In the defense of the applicant, this is how it's been done for the last 5 years.
okay, well, I'm not complaining about the applicant, I'm just,
No, not.
I'm just saying that,
I'm just saying, when I brought this subject matter up. It was, when somebody presented me with a drawing of workforce development housing and didn't want to take 100 hours in survey costs if the town just wasn't interested. So that was what the purpose I was going for with this subject matter.
okay,
When somebody submits an application, it gets put into your packet. That's just, it doesn't pass go, so sending it out early. I'm not sure if you break open meeting laws by discussing an application that's been come in before the packet, before the meeting anyway.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Jim?
well, I'm just saying that if we get an application, there should be some context for it.
So you'd like
Is it complete?
me to,
Has it, yeah. has-
Okay.
It's complete, has the fee been paid, et cetera, et cetera. If it's just informational, then
right,
it probably shouldn't go on an application form. It should just, someone comes in and says, I'm interested in doing this type of development.
you wouldn't know about it at that point.
What's that?
You wouldn't know about it at that point because it's not a form, it's not an application until it's paid and submitted.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
As far as the open meeting aspect, we received the packet days ahead of the meeting anyway. So we would certainly have the opportunity to discuss it with each other individually.
Individually,
If we chose to, certainly not as a group.
right.
So I understand your point that way, but I don't think we're getting it early anyway before the meeting. So I don't see any problem with, the open meeting laws.
Okay.
Depends how you discuss it,
But-
but you're right.
Regarding a staff report, though, I take your point in that we might want, when we get to this, an agenda item, you would like to have comment from the staff as we begin discussion. Right, a report on, when stuff came in, have they paid their fee?
Is it complete?
Is it complete? And what kind of timeline are we talking about? Stuff like that. Okay.
Those things that you check when you receive the application, or are those things that we need to review as?
Well,
part of our
that's why
meetings?
you don't see it until it's a completed application. So giving you a report saying it's a completed application is redundant. And I think that if I started writing reports for with pros and cons, that shapes the conversation in a way that I think would either direct or misdirect your talk. I mean, I'm happy to do it. I have an opinion on everything.
I guess my only, since this is the first time we're coming to this as a group,
Right.
my question would be then, okay, so the application comes today. Is the expectation that we act on it today and come to a resolution, or is it, hey, we bring it up, discuss it, and we may not act on it until the next meeting?
I wouldn't expect you to act on this application tonight.
Oh, I'm just saying in general, not
Yeah.
necessarily this one. Because, if we see it a few days before the meeting, we may want to have discussion about it and maybe not make a decision.
Yeah, in almost every circumstance, there's going to be a public hearing that follows.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't be acting, on night one of seeing an application.
Okay, all right. Any other comments along this line? We'll sort of see, I also think all this stuff is gonna evolve. We're a new group and our
Mhm.
needs are gonna develop. So we'll just keep coming this and figuring out what it is we need and what we want as we know more ourselves. Now, in relation, now is a time for public comment. We'll also have public comment in new business. And has anybody signed for public comment on old business? All right,
Okay.
we
Thank
can
you.
move along to new business. The first order of business was to discuss the maps in the existing plan and the current zoning map. And we have before us, we have new zoning maps. We have the current zoning map. Which is our working copy, and we have copies for the public if you would like, there's 2 copies there, if you want to take a look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's this one.
They're annoying, they roll up. Okay. So, for discussing the map and the existing plans, let me say there's really only 6 maps in the existing plan. And there's data that shows up in text form that I'm gonna try to propose that some of it be moved into maps. And that I'll come to you with more information about that as I go along. So let's get oriented to the zoning map. First of all, I'm struck by the number of categories and subcategories and special use codes. The other thing I'm struck by is that we've got land marked here and coded, but it's actually not in the town, right? This is that big agricultural area that was recently sold off Liberty Street.
There's 150 feet from Liberty back. That is part of the town.
It's part of the town.
That's
Okay,
why the black line.
okay.
But why is the rest of it colored?
Well, because it's one parcel that came with the map, so. You know,
Well, that can be fixed though.
Okay. That leads me to a question, but I'll ask later. Okay, Matt, do you want to orient us to this for folks who haven't spent a lot of time looking at it?
it might be easiest if I just went down the zoning designations that R1A. Typically, the difference between an R1A and the other are the setback requirements. They're typically larger residential lots. So that's what an R1A is. So you'll see white is residential R1A, and that setback requirement is what differentiates them. R1B is Mount Prospect, basically. You can see that the lot size is significantly smaller in some cases. The setbacks on R1B are significantly smaller and narrower than they are in R1A. So you can have higher density. R1C is our northeast section. The difference between an R1B and an R1C is the fact that they allow manufactured homes by request in R1C. And nowhere else in town are they allowed. Then R2 is multifamily residential. There's only a few spots in town that have that designation right now, the Pine Street Apartments, the in Hancock Square, and then over where Escadiv is. So those 3 spots there. B1 is basically business downtown, so you can see where the yellow is. That's our downtown. There are no setbacks downtown in a B1, so a building can be built directly up against another building. There's no setback requirement, and it can go right up to the VDOT right away. B2 is as you head out, some call it B2 highway, which is basically from Jackson Street out to Fairgrounds is B2. BW are water-based or businesses that require water. Or waterfront businesses, so that you can see the pink down there with Cheney's Pier and the old Bagwell Oil
Mhm.
tank locations are on there, so you can tell that there's some updating that can be done. Parks and open spaces, that's fairly obvious. It's where we do have open spaces and or parks. The cultural, recreational and community facility, that's school. That's got its own zoning designation. And IU, we put that in place for the generally speaking, just for the pumping stations for the sewer. Because those are going to become assets of HRSD and they'll be zoned differently. So those will be utilities, industrial utilities.
Wait, I don't see them. I mean,
They're not, they're, the only one that's marked on here is down on Hartman,
Okay.
right there, and there's another one over on South Street that was marked. The others haven't been, they haven't been closed on yet. HRSD doesn't own them yet.
oh, okay.
As far as the special use codes, a lot of people want to know, like, where are the Airbnbs? How many Airbnbs do we have? How many home businesses do we have? That type of thing. So these are more for informational purposes than anything. Scooting down the list, you've got STR as the short-term rentals. Those haven't been marked in here yet, and we only have 11.
So are these uses that have special use permits?
Yes.
Okay.
So does that orient you enough? Now, this, just to be very clear, this is not the official map of the town. The official map of the town hangs in the main lobby of town hall. So this is a work in process, so you can, once it's finished, we'll get it printed and hung up in there and town council will adopt it at that point.
Matt, one of the things that's confused me is this G, this red G, government,
Right,
which is not a zoning district.
it's not a zoning district, but it's a use.
It's a use, but it's not, that doesn't have a special use permit.
No, it doesn't.
So it's more of a land use category, not a zoning category.
Correct.
Because when I was looking at the farmer's market application, that it shows it as government, but it doesn't show it as.
Well, that's
in the
our
B.
street.
Right, but it doesn't show it as the application says it's B1 business downtown. But this map shows it as just government. And there's no use regulations for government in the zoning ordinance.
That's true.
So it's kind of confusing.
So how would this how should this be addressed then? Because if we've got this confusing use, and then you've got this big chunk, this is all city no, this isn't city property. What is all this? The fire station?
In the armory.
Oh, in the armory. Hmm,
So what zoning are those two?
right. Okay. Okay,
This is more like an existing land use map, which is you can use to develop a zoning map and future land use map. Because it shows the actual uses of the land. But as a zoning map, that red doesn't really do it.
okay.
Designated the zoning category.
Yeah, oh, so that all of these categories, well, this is where this is where doing this with a GIS layered approach, where we could have a proper zoning map, and then you could overlay specific land uses over that, as needed. This strikes me as being sort of a working map for people, but it's not an official map.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is the agricultural area on Liberty Street, whether it's in town or not. There's no special use permit associated with that, is there?
No,
No. So if it's zoned agricultural, there should be an agricultural zoning designation.
Okay. Excuse me, as a gardener, what I'm doing here is I just pulled a tick off, walking across the back of my deck. That's what I get for being outdoors. Yes, I did. I squashed him.
yeah.
He's been squashed
Just flicked
completely.
it over to the
Yeah.
neighbor.
Over to Cindy and move up her leg. Yeah. God,
It's Carr Street.
yeah. Okay. Are there any questions about this? Does this make sense to people?
Casey,
a work in
this
progress,
actually
for
is a
sure.
layered map, but this is a layered map. I can
Yeah.
remove any one of these special use codes, for example,
Yeah.
and it would only show what the zoning designation is.
See, that's what I think in the comprehensive plan, what would be great, the online version of the comprehensive plan would be to, instead of having, we've got these 6 maps that are difficult to read, although people would have to go to the website, would be to give them a bunch of options like that so that they can layer them, right? And, so they can see this, or they can go just to zoning designations. And they can also focus in on on other issues. So at any rate, that's further down the road. Any other questions about this map? Problems that you see with this map?
The only thing, the other comment I had is there are, in mapping for zoning, there are conventions for colors that
Uh-huh.
are very different than these. So I would suggest we look up
Okay.
the recommended colors, and when we do change it, use those colors, because they have a logic to them that makes sense.
Okay.
When you're looking at the map.
And where does that come from? Just pick it up on,
Just.
you
always
just
been
know
done.
it. Yeah, it's just,
We used colored pencils, you know. Yellow was residential, darker,
yeah.
darker was more intense. Red was commercial, blue was public facility, that type of thing.
Okay.
Green agricultural.
There must be,
Yeah,
there's some place where
I'll
there's
look
a
at it.
formula. Okay, all right.
I mean, it's not a big deal. For me, it's very confusing because I'm used to, it's like a palette. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Going forward, it would be nice to have.
One of the things that I noticed was that when I was looking at, we have the question of the official map, which we also have to, is that it looked like there was really reading some of the stuff and then reading the Virginia Planning Association document. It sounds like there's actually contradictory requirements and it's really hard to make an official map. Am I correct about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the future land use map is really the map that we need to develop that guides future zoning. And to do that, an interim step is the existing land use map, which is very good. That lets you really look at
Yeah,
the town and say what's actually out there.
yeah.
Glad you have this on GIS. I didn't know the town had that capability. But
That's excellent. Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions about this? So we'll be working on this, but if you want to take a look at the problem of developing an official map, and that has to include a future land use map. So that's also going to force us to think about some of these other issues like green space and town boundaries and things like that. because we're, let me look at the time real quick. Because we're running along, what I'd like to do is for next month, now that you've seen this, what I'd like to do is have you think about other information that could be presented in maps that you don't see, right? You know, there are some maps that have to do with flood zones, for example, or some of the other things that are in the existing map. But let's take a look at what's in the comprehensive plan, what's in this map, and see what other questions you have that are not appearing in any of these maps. And then what we'll do is talk about that and think about other kinds of maps that we could develop. I actually could see the tree board even developing a tree map for us. Because we have a lot of elderly trees in town, and I think we're gonna have to plan for a lot of trees I think are gonna come down in the next 10 years. Okay. So, well, let's talk, so what we'll do next month is we'll talk about adding data fields for maps so that we can think about what we want to do and how we might present that. Is that all right with everybody? Okay. So we have two sort of things we want to talk about. One is a rezoning application, which we received that relates to a B2, the big plot that on the edge of town that was recently sold. And we received an application from the Atlantic Group.
And I just wanted to let you know the applicants in there.
I thought that might be the applicant here. And so what I'd like to do in that case, that allows us to, how would you like to talk to us about what you're thinking about with this property? I will say, obviously, we have an incomplete application, but let's get started, right?
Good evening. My name's Chris Carville. I'm a principal with the Atlantic Group and Associates, here on behalf of the Otochowski Group, who has recently purchased the property, before you this evening. That property is, 27.33 acres plus or minus, located on the north side of Market Street, just west of Fairgrounds Road, further described as tax map 85A3-A-29A. The property is currently zoned B2. The owner is proposing to rezone the property R2. The property is adjacent to other R2 property just to the west. It's our opinion that this parcel is more suitable for multifamily housing than for business uses that may be more appropriate downtown or closer to the Route 13 corridor. We've included just the concept plan, just so, with our application, so you could get an idea of the owner's vision for the property. That is not, an official site plan. We understand there's more work to be done, but we thought that would be helpful with the application just to see the owner's vision for that property. But with that said, we're hopeful that, additional housing options within the town would be considered favorable by this commission, and we'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have. It does sound like we're here at a good time as your town is considering the comprehensive plan and making updates to that. Maybe this is something that could be considered as part of the comprehensive plan, or maybe it is a rezoning. But we're here to kind of introduce the request and the application and find out what process we would need to go forward with, for you guys in this town to consider the owner's request.
So one of my questions for you is that you also are leading the effort out on the highway. Am I correct? The one that's associated behind Food Lion.
Yes, and just to be clear, again, that's a total different project, different application, different group. Yes, I'm part of that project in that group, both my land planning firm and my development group. This here, I'm representing this owner as the land planner, to basically, again, guide him through the zoning process.
I've got a question. Go ahead. Does the C100 specify the number of units in the concept? I was trying to count, but I wasn't certain.
There, on that plan, on the site data, it does show, in concept that there are 95 townhomes and 34 duplex units for a total of 129 units.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I'm trying to take notes.
Sure. 95 townhomes, and 34 duplex units.
Matt, just a request in the future, if you could get us a legend that we can read. I tried to read it on my computer, but you know, you try to expand it and it doesn't work. I have to say the density concerns me. That's a considerable number of units for our size of town to add to our population. Just a thought.
You mentioned workforce housing. Is there a definition to that or income levels or? grants
Well, I mean,
associated with it?
there's different programs out there right now and similarly to what our other group did at the Coastal Square project, what we did is allocate a certain percentage of the homes to workforce housing. I see that as something, as a potential avenue here for this project. We haven't got far enough along to know exactly what price range or, you know, what level of workforce housing we could accommodate. But, you know, typically, you know, a project like this, there's a portion of the housing that probably could support those at the 80 to 120% median income. As far as the workforce
So these
housing
are all
level.
regarded as these are all ownership. These are not regarded as rental units, or none of these are regarded as rental
They're not
units?
anticipated to be any rentals. They're intended to be fee simple lots that would be for sale units. There would be an association. I think you can see on the concept, we tried to incorporate, you know, good open space, community amenities such as a small clubhouse and pool. But we have other programs just to, you know, make you aware of. The current governor has also, you know, come out with an initiative to get more workforce housing. And we're working with that program that does allow us now to work with towns to bring in more workforce housing. And it also allows you to qualify for state funding, low interest loans, grants. That allows you now to also go up to 150% of the median income. And that is also another possibility for a project like this.
When you cut the say median income, are you talking for the state, for our?
For your
our-
locality, yeah.
Would these be public streets?
You know, we haven't got far enough to know whether they would be public town streets or private streets. My anticipation would be that they would be private streets, but, you know, again, I think that's up to the town as far as whether they would want to take anything under their jurisdiction. I don't think VDOT, today is still looking to take on more, roadways into their system. So that's still open for discussion, I guess.
One other thing I had thought about is that there's just one access point. There's just one road that comes out. But I noticed that green corridor on the C100 goes out to another street. Would you anticipate redesigning it to allow 2 access points to the community?
That's possible, if the town thought that was needed. Again, we did not find that was necessary for a project of this size. You know, we thought that open space and that buffer might be a better use for our neighbors. But again, this is a concept. If the town came back to us and said they prefer to have two access points, we could take that under consideration. And again, if your plan's really small and if it would be helpful, I could give you this to put a larger copy on your.
Great. Yes, we're working with Teeny Weeny.
I just noticed. Might be better to see.
Are there, do you have examples of this development we could visit and look at? That you.
I mean, well, I mean, again, we haven't got to where we have selected the builder yet. You know, the first step is getting a rezoning, getting a site plan approved, and then we go out and select the builders. But, you know, we could, you know, give you samples of the types of housing that would, you know, be proposed here. Similar products, that's something we can provide.
And what's your time frame on, if it was approved, what would your time frame be to build it?
Well, I mean, I always say that's a big question mark. I mean, you look at, you know, our other project, that's been going on now for about 3 years as we're waiting for approval. So a lot of that's, you know, up to kind of the jurisdictions on how fast the permitting process goes. But, you know, again, once we have approvals, you know, our projects will typically, as far as zoning, I mean, it takes about 12 to 18 months to get all your permitting drawings together. They get submitted for review. That can take another 6 months. So, you know, once you have, I guess, your site plan ready to go, you're looking at 18 to probably 24 months.
Just stop me if I'm wrong. This plan also abuts fairgrounds, right?
Well, I mean, it's an intersection where I think the town has some property that you have signage, you know, notifying that you're entering the town of
Right.
Anacog. Whether that's, you know, VDOT right away or town property, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
But I don't know if we got any exact frontage on Fairgrounds Road. I think it's technically all on Market Street.
I think looking at the
Mhm.
plat, yeah. That, I guess what my question was that I'm just thinking about the increase in traffic along Market, because the county one is like 450 units. I know that's a different corporation than this. I understand all of that. I'm just thinking about load on Market Street into town.
Well, to have the dual lanes that you have, you got pretty sufficient vehicular capacity, I will tell you that. But what I can also tell you is, as with any zoning, for us to get an entrance permit, VDOT's gonna look at any project and ensure that the traffic, you know, circulation and any improvements are done so that there's no impact to the community.
The fire department.
Yes, I
All
mean,
those
it's
folks like you did before.
all the agencies, yes, they
Yeah.
have, you know, an opportunity to provide comment and requirements for any project like this.
Thank you.
So at this point, one of the issues facing you is that this is B2. And so you'd like to have it rezoned to R2. Okay,
Right, we, you know, again, find that, you know, that's a pretty, you know, 23 acres for a business parcel is pretty large.
it's
And
large.
chances are, you know, a neighborhood business, it's too large for them to go there. You know, something like that, I mean, shoot, 20 some acres, that might take, you know, one of your smaller big box
Yeah.
stores. That's gonna be likely be out on the Route 13 corridor.
Yeah,
You know, in downtown, you know, I think that's a very good appropriate place for more commercial, and infill. But, you know, this on the outskirts of town, I think this is a good location as a land planner for this type of project. I think we were sensitive to try to do this, so, you know, it has a nice look as you come into town. As you can see, we have berming and buffering proposed along the roadway. We were really sensitive, make sure we didn't detract from the entrance to Anacog. That's very important to us. We like the fact that this is kind of there at the gateway of Anacog. We could have the pedestrian link and sidewalks that go into downtown. So there's a lot of pluses, I think, for this to be a multifamily development. We have adjacent, you know, multifamily development. We have obviously our project, other project that's, you know, just east of here. So I thought it could be, you know, as the development group for us and this owner thought it could be a good link or connection to the town of Anacog.
I think it's really important that that, you know, if something like this goes ahead, that it be really tied in with sidewalks and other things tied into the town, right? Because you've got the B2 district here. And actually, it would be a tremendous, it would certainly make business
Yes.
in B2 take.
I mean,
off.
it's our goal to make a pedestrian link from, you know,
Yeah.
our coastal square project all the way to downtown.
Yeah,
I mean, that is our goal. You know, I will, you know, give you a heads up. I mean, we're working on, you know, completing the development of Duncan Manor with this property owner right now. So, you know, that property, there will be plans coming out, you know, soon where that would get finished and, you know, there'd be adjustments to those properties in there. So that's on the horizon. But we think this, you know, and again, looking at your comp plan, this is a great opportunity, maybe good timing that we look at this as, you know, a growth area,
mhm.
you know, for the town of Anacog. As we extend infrastructure out there, the water and the sewer, you know, this kind of could really come together well. We do understand that this is a process that, you know, likely involves public hearings and, you know, again, we were trying to, you know, learn what the real process was as, you know, our firm is not really submitted for any rezonings to the town of Anacog. So we understand we gotta, you know, work through that.
Right.
But, you know, to put this, you know, before you, I thought this is a good opportunity to at least let you see what we were proposing and hopefully find out if, you know, we're on the right track for the vision of Anacog.
So the refresh my memory on the plan for, what's it called, Coastal Square around? And does that involves rental units? Does
It
that have
does.
a considerable number of rental?
Yeah, it has a majority of those.
Is rental units.
312 of those are rental units.
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Matt, could you talk to us a moment about water capacity? I know that there are murmurings of other developments in different areas of town. And we just need to consider our capacity versus the requests.
Well, our capacity is well beyond what any request would be. We've got 120 million gallons annual permitted that we can withdraw. We've got capacity, and the technical report that gave you showed you that that's be handled handily by the aquifer. So I'm not worried about the extension and use of the water resources.
I know. Okay.
Well, in addition to the water, Chris was mentioning the sewer. If it's draining into our current system, our system seems to have problems now, at least in some areas.
That's,
So,
well, once we get the pump stations closed, 3 of the pump stations are being rebuilt by HRSD. Then we've got one that's already been rebuilt by HRSD, and that's the pressure system. This would be put into Boundary, which would be part of the pressurized system, and pushed all the way down to the plant. The plant's got 3 times the capacity of its current use right now. It's got they use about 250,000 gallons a day, and they've got 750,000 gallons a day capacity.
and presumably any problems would be HRSDs.
Yes.
Do you want to ask a question, Dana? Yeah, why not? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious, so we're in the same, Onacog's in the same water area as the Purdue plant, which is a huge drawer of the water. And I think there's already a dome of depression that's underneath the Purdue plant, because they have been taking so much water out. So, no, that they're really.
Again, we've had engineers and geologists go through our study, and our study included 700 more homes
Mhm.
in Anacog. So that's the number that we added to it. So that's why they increased the permit so dramatically.
And again, just to add, I mean, it's public knowledge that we know Accomack and Northampton County have done a housing study to show that, there's a housing shortage
Oh,
of
the tremendous
thousands of
housing
units.
shortage.
And, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it takes planning, a project, like I said, of this size. We could be looking at over 2 years from start to finish to get something up and going. We're already behind. It probably will not get better. We don't have many localities, as I said before, this town before, on the Eastern Shore of Virginia, where we have water and sewer capacity.
That's right.
I mean, so if we're going to solve this problem, we have to look to the towns and work with the towns to try to bring the best projects we can, where there's infrastructure, where there's the commercial amenities, the medical services. We know the teachers need housing. We know the hospital staff needs housing. We know people at Wallops need housing. So I mean, it's a tough situation, but again, outside of the Onancock area, we have nowhere really, nowhere else to go at this point.
Okay. All right, well, at this point, I guess what I need to do is get a sense of, I don't have I'm just new to the planning commission. And I need to develop a better sense of the process.
At the end of the day, the overly simplified process is that you would say yay or nay.
Right, true.
And then you'd say that to town council. Town council is the one who says ultimately yay or nay to this
Right.
project. And then beyond that, if it's denied for there, he can go to a board of zoning appeals.
Well, what I'm thinking about is before it goes to town council, what we need to be thinking about, right? I'm interested in the steps up to it going to town council.
I think it would be prudent to have a public hearing on, the
I believe it's
application.
required. I mean,
Well,
I'm not-
Yeah.
I think it's required.
Multiple advertisements and.
Yes.
Yeah.
hearings.
Unless you made a change in your comprehensive plan, as part of that process.
Yeah,
The only way we can propose a rezoning is to make an application with whatever process that this board and staff, requires of us. Typically, obviously with Mr. McGowan, I've been through many projects with him in Accomack County. We're, gone through these rezoning projects before, many of them. It's a public hearing. You hear staff comments, make sure that, we've provided adequate information for you guys to make an informed decision. You make a recommendation to town council, and obviously they'll make the ultimate decision. But that's typically the process we've worked through on the Eastern Shore of Virginia.
so first, what we need is, Matt, help me on this. So before we make a decision about rezoning, what we need is a more complete application.
This is the Onancock rezoning application.
This is just, all we need is that much for the rezoning, and then at that point, we still have the ability to say yay or nay, depending on, right?
Whatever information you want, or at this point that you can make it.
Okay.
You can feel you've made an informed recommendation. So if you say, is this gonna be a saltwater pool or a chlorine pool, and I'm not making our decision until I know the answer to that, Chris would give you that.
Yeah. Right.
So that's why I'm saying you wouldn't act tonight. But you would individually or collectively compile a list of questions for Chris that would go through everything.
That's what I was gonna say, is we need more information before we would want to schedule a public hearing.
Okay.
I can tell you that a lot size variance is not appropriate for this.
I'm gonna tell you, I mean, you guys gotta think about that a little bit, because right now your minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet for a multifamily
I know.
home. It doesn't work. If you're going to do a townhouse, it's only 20
Yeah.
foot wide. I'd have to make that lot 1,000 feet deep.
Yeah,
That,
It
that's-
doesn't,
Yeah,
it
no,
doesn't work.
I agree that they're not, that's not appropriate lot size for a townhouse. But it wouldn't be a variance. It would be an amendment to the zoning district allowing
Yeah,
a
that's-
different
yeah.
lot size.
We could
A
do that. I mean,
variance-
we did the
it
similar
would-
thing with, we
a
got a
variance
variance
would be
with the county
The Board
to
of
do the
Zoning
same
Appeals,
thing
yeah.
at Coastal Square, but if you had a different process, we could, you
I just
know,
wanted
take
to
whatever process that
Point
was
that out
acceptable to the
now
town.
instead- Rather than later.
okay.
So you said we'd have to amend it in the ordinance, Jim?
Yeah, to get to where he would want to go.
Okay.
So we would redefine R2, or do we create a new category, R3?
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Think about that. And then you can have a zoning for townhouses and
right,
duplexes that have a lot size that's more appropriate for it. Just like we
right.
went through that with the utility. you know, Adding the utility zone.
Oh, okay, all right. All right.
Playing the devil's advocate here. I think one of the concerns will be certainly by the public that changing the lot size will change the complexion of the town. I mean, one of the things that is notable about our town is the lot sizes, the spacing between houses, or dwelling units. So I think, you know, there are pros and cons to that thought. I understand what you're saying in terms of being, of what you need to do for workforce housing. But then again, I think we need to give this a lot of consideration because I think there'll be considerable public pushback.
Depends on the neighborhood, I think. I mean,
Well,
there'll be
it's the
pushback or not.
town. It's not just the neighborhood.
I know, but I think you're gonna see big differences across neighborhoods in response to this. I really do. But, okay, so the first order of business is what?
We create a list of questions.
Okay. Okay, so we'll compile a list of questions to, then it will, that answering those questions, it will be in writing? Or are we doing it in hearing? It's a set of questions that we would ask for a response in writing. Am I correct about that? Okay, all right. Bear with me on this.
So we
One-
understand.
I don't want to nitpick too much, but I'm trying to point you in the right direction. The north branch of an Hancock Creek runs along your property.
Mhm.
I don't see 100-foot buffer here.
We're working on that now. Yeah.
Just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure.
the RPA is applicable. We'll have the 100-foot buffer. You know, again, we would have to come back with detailed site plan. The rezoning request does not give an approval of any site plan as I see
Yeah.
it. What it does is tell us you can go and spend that money, which could take in this situation, 6 figures to do all the plan development to get an approval of a project.
Right,
Most of our clients do not want to spend that money before they know they have assurances or some comfort level that they have the support to rezone it or propose a project because it's very expensive.
yeah,
I mean, for instance, our traffic study, just for Coastal Square, and residents was about $100,000 alone just for a traffic study. I mean, it can get very expensive, you know, where you're talking about a lot of money that you don't want to just put out there if there's not support for such a project.
okay, so the first order of business is we'll develop a list of questions. How would you guys like to do this? Do you want to send them to me to compile into a list?
Yeah.
The questions that you have?
Yeah,
Okay,
I like that.
very good. Can we put a deadline on that? How much time do you want to develop those questions? That can include you too, if you want. And it, you know,
Do we want to discuss them as a group at the next meeting?
yeah, let's discuss them as a
Before we
group at the
pass them
next meeting before we pass them on. So that means
2
you've got to
weeks.
give me,
When your packet gets put
that's
together.
right. That's right. So you have to give me, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but
Say 10 days before.
10 days before the meeting,
Meetings on the 3rd of June.
meeting's on the 3rd of
There you
June.
go.
The month is zipping by. Can you give me your questions in a week? All right,
Right.
you
At
try.
End of next week, 16,
End of next week. That gives you 10 days.
gives you the weekend to work on.
Yeah, I know. All my weekends are
Do you have a date, Jim?
disappearing.
16th.
Okay.
Friday.
I'm just thinking we also have the comprehensive plan work to get going too, so it's gonna be an exciting,
Okay, shouldn't the meeting be on the 2nd of June? I'm thinking on the
June
website it
2nd
says
is-
the 3rd. June 2nd is a
Yeah.
Monday.
Okay. 16 May.
Did you hear that, Matt?
We'll figure it out. If people can't make that deadline, this is a more pressing one. So,
Okay.
okay,
But just to be clear, I mean, that is our concept plan. It's not a final plan. We understand there's a lot of environmental, traffic, things we need to work through with a site plan that would likely come before this commission, I would suspect, where we go through the details of that plan. Generally that's the vision, of the products and how the layout would generally work. If that helps clarify things.
Yeah.
Okay.
all right. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for bearing with us as I learn my way along on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't think it's too hard to generate questions. Just sit there with your cup of coffee and generate questions, and I'll pull a list to get by the 16th, and I'll pull a list together, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Boy. Okay. All right, where were we on our agenda?
Special use permit.
The special use permit. This is needed for the farmer's market during the winter months.
For
Can you hear?
all months. It's for all year.
Oh, for the all
Yeah,
year?
and if you'll notice, it's for permanently, it's for all time. So
Okay.
it's for all year, all time to use the Queen Street parking area as the farmer's market. For the farmer's market.
I talked with Fletcher and Janet today. There's an error in the application. Apparently, it should only apply to the summer market since special use permits are not needed for buildings. Just for outdoor activities.
No,
And
I see
Fletcher's-
nothing takes place on the outside during the winter. That's true.
Yeah, Fletcher's on the Zoom if we have questions, and I'm sure Janet is too.
Yeah, this is Janet. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm here to answer questions. I actually tried to push on the mic and I don't
Oh,
think, I don't know if
okay,
y'all
here.
can hear me through Zoom.
Hold
If you
on.
can, hang up on me and I'll talk through Zoom.
Either that or I can just put my microphone down.
Yeah, we're not hearing you well, Janet.
Okay, can you hear me just through Matt's phone?
yeah,
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, now we can hear you, I think.
Okay, are you hearing me through Matt's phone or through the Zoom?
Matt's phone.
Okay, all right. So I apologize. It's been 14 years since I filled this out for the farmer's market that we have. A couple of things have actually changed, but one, I just was not paying attention and am so used to advocating for the entire market and the summer and winter times that I just put that in the as special use permit. It is really for the summer market. It's because the special use permit is needed for an outdoor market. So really item one is the only thing that we're asking for. Also permanent is in there because actually when we applied, there were no time limits on special use permits. They expired with the sale of the property. Like if you had a special use permit for your bed and breakfast, it didn't convey at the sale. There was no time limit put on the application that we filled out for the farmers market that exists now. I think that time limit came into effect with the Airbnbs. And so I didn't even see that in the zoning and just figured I don't know when we're leaving, you know, if for some reason the market ever failed, you know, obviously it would end, but that's why I put permanent. Y'all can change that certainly if you feel like, you know, some other expression is more appropriate, that's fine. But it was not a renewable necessity when we applied for the other lot. So with those corrections, any other questions that you might have, I'm certainly happy to answer them.
Go on to, or, well, we know that it has to go to all the neighbors, right? I don't know if Matt, the person who takes it to the neighbors?
Well,
Okay.
if you all are amenable to this, we kind of thought you were step one. And so if you all are feeling like, okay, the only thing we want to be assured of is that the neighbors will have been informed. Most of them were at the meeting, or we've talked to them ahead of the last town council meeting, but we're certainly happy to make sure that they are contacted, spoken with, a letter sent, whatever form of communication you all require. We're happy to do that.
Matt's left the room, Janet, so he can't speak to whether it's already been done.
I'm not sure it has been done as far as
There he is.
everybody, but yeah, let's see what Matt says, because we're happy to be part of that if you need us to be.
What's that?
Who's notifying the adjacent landowners?
I do adjacent property owners for all special use permits.
Okay,
I usually hand deliver,
Okay.
And that's been done for this one?
so it doesn't have to be done until 7 days before the public hearing, which we're having at a meeting at the end of the month.
on the 19th.
Yeah, that's right.
Good, two things. One, could we, you know, could someone produce a cleaned up copy? This, you know, this kind of a mess, and it doesn't include all the, you know, they
Yeah.
don't need to do it for the winter market anymore.
Yes, let me redo that, and we'll be back in town on Thursday. I can bring it to the town office so that it can be properly stamped, or I can just you know, try to redo it here. We're in Chicago, and send it to Matt to handle, whichever y'all want.
Okay. The other thing is that I would be more comfortable if it was not a permanent, if it had a time on it. Right, don't they normally work, we could say it goes for 3 years or 5 years or something like that?
Usually it goes until the property sells, like Janet said. So if you want to put a 5-year renewal or something like that, I don't know.
What would be reasonable? I
Yeah.
just don't know. I'm
Yeah.
looking at Janet's face, trying to.
I'm trying to be a sphinx. Well, what I'm thinking about is the fact that when you say the market, you are talking about the entire year. And so if if you put a time limit and we've got the winter market set up there in a building, and in 5 years y'all say we need y'all to move on, that's a massive move. That's us having to relinquish the building or try to raise funds to move the building. So it's not a small thing to just, you know, go in and renew, or to live under the you know, the threat of it ending in 5 years after the level of work that we will have put in. So I would just ask you to be cognizant of that. It's you know, it's a big deal to worry about being displaced. That's where we are right now, is being displaced from the lot that we've been in. We're trying to find a way to, you know, feel, you know, deeply rooted in the next lot. I understand the word permanent. It doesn't feel good. And certainly perhaps a 10-year look, because, you know, at that point we might be looking at a refresh for the building. 5 years feels like a sort of a little too imminent.
So I
So
had
I-
a question. I mean, I don't really have a problem with permanent. I'm assuming is there something in the code to say, hey, we can take this special use permit back if there are certain things happen?
If we don't live up to any requirements you put on this, and I'm
Correct.
speaking over you, Matt, I'm sorry. You go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, it's if you put mitigations in here that they have to follow, then they'll have to follow that in order to operate the market.
Okay, but there's nothing otherwise to say, hey, if I give you a special use permit, there's no way to say, hey, that's null and void for some reason unless you build it in each one.
I see Janet's point clearly.
Absolutely.
That,
You know, in 5 years as council changes,
is
Yeah, absolutely.
put
put a lot of work, so if permanent doesn't work,
you know,
you know, I would suggest a much longer term.
That land is government land. So the probability of it being sold is slim to none, correct?
Say it's probably pretty slim.
So permanent, so the special use permit attaches to the property. So since it's government property, it is perpetuity unless
Well, I mean, you know,
it's
if you're
specified.
sell it to
a company who builds a 3-story parking garage,
Yeah, the government can.
you know,
Right.
so
I wouldn't say
they
never.
never,
That's
that's
why
why I would,
Point taken.
Another possibility would be to attach it to the organization. I mean, I don't think it would even transfer if it were a different organization running the farmers market. Right now, this 501c3 registered organization, if it ever went out of existence, I think you would want the farmers market to be reassessed as to, you know, they don't have a way to pass this on. So it can live just under the guise of the management coming from that organization, if that helps.
could make a contingent on being an organization in good standing with the SEC.
Right, or yeah, with a 501c3 or even that specific organization.
That's,
Okay.
we are one. We are one.
Yeah. Okay. I'm more comfortable with that because I could see this evolving or changing and this organization maybe not continuing to exist. So I'd prefer to tie it to the 501c3.
Makes sense. I'll put that in my revision. if that's
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, that's great. So,
I'm gonna be advertising the public hearing at the meeting on the 19th, this Friday and next.
okay,
So another question then, so the council voted to allow the market to use the lot. So that's obviously separate from this. Were there provisions in there? All I'm trying to get to here is, let's say that they decide to leave the parking lot a mess, you know, after every farmer's market on a Saturday, all of a sudden that starts happening. What is the recourse of anyone to do anything about that?
Well, that was actually brought up when we opened it in our lot, and they wanted assurances that you know, no trash would be left behind, that no vendors were dumping their ice. You know, basically that was it. They wanted, you know, it to be left as it was found. And you all know the level, pretty much everybody in that room knows the level of noise that's generated. It's, you know, it's conversational, pedestrian noise. We have a single musician, sometimes a duet. We're planning on having them with their back to the tree so that the volume or whatever they're doing is being directed towards the side of the Playhouse Warehouse. And it's never, occasionally they'll have a small amp, but it's barely heard at the other side of the market. So this is not something we plan to increase. Probably the loudest thing is the handbell from an old school marm, grandmother of mine, that's rung at 9 a.m. and noon to open and close the market. But other than that, I couldn't think of any other impact. And we certainly, I'm happy to put in that, you know, it will be left as it is found. Matt, we'll have to work out, you know, where the trash receptacles stay for the market. The other thing that we're talking to our vendors about, just so you'll know, is when we set up in the other lot and they offloaded and went to park, we always ask them to park as far away as possible, like down behind the movie theater, so that shoppers could, you know, have the closest access. What we're talking to them now about doing is parking out on Ames Street, not even using any slots in the market, because we know that's sensitive, and we want every slot possible left open, and not taken up by our vendors after they've offloaded. So we're going to ask them to start on the other side of Ames Street, fill that up first, and then continue parking, you know, wherever is space available on Ames Street.
So I guess my question still stands. The town council voted to allow them to use the lot. Was there any agreement that's in place there that has any of these provisions in there?
Nothing. No.
No, we're the ones who have to,
The chief of police or myself would manage any parking issues. But that was it.
And signage. Right.
Mhm.
But we could put those conditions in our approval of the special use permit.
Well, that would be a discussion for us. You know, I mean, you just love Janet, you know, and the market's been doing great, but at some point, if something went wrong, do you want to make sure that you have some type of provision there to be able to deal with that?
yeah.
But really, the Matt and Eric will have dominion over the signage that's in the lot, the wayfinding signage. You know, we're going to certainly make requests and suggestions, but enforcement of that on market morning, that's not something that I can promise for them. I think that was why it was in the motion that the town voted on, was that to understand that that was part of what setting this in place does. But I'm not sure I can be the person, or the market can be the entity that accepts the responsibility for that kind of enforcement. Does that make sense?
Absolutely not asking you to do that. That was not what my intention at all.
Okay.
Well, we can tie the special use permit to the organization, so that's one way to handle it, but it's not a deadline per se. I mean, we could ask them for, you know, a 5-year or a 5-year special permit or something like that has to be renewed. Would that make you more comfortable, Jeff?
I don't have any problem with the duration of it.
Okay,
I don't have any problem, even if it was permanent, I don't have a problem with the duration of it. I'm just saying, we want to make sure that we have some provision if things go wrong,
right.
that there's a way to act on that. I'm not saying it will, but just trying to protect.
And I assume including being a victim of their own success with which I'm hopeful for, right? You know, I really, but it's just the amount of traffic and parking and people coming all year round.
And I think what Janet mentioned was, you know, leaving it in the same condition as when they started. I think that is plenty. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so at this point, do we need to take a formal vote telling her to revise? Or are we just telling her to go back and revise?
And you guys are gonna make a recommendation to town council
Yes,
after the public hearing on the 19th.
yes.
You'll have a joint public hearing. You'll open your meeting formally. You'll have your public hearing. You'll close. Fletcher will open his public
Yeah.
hearing. Close, and then the council will vote on this application. So all I need is this application in my hot little hands in time before the 12th.
Okay, so Janet, your revised application, he needs it by the 12th. And then does that assume that then on the 12th, you will take it to the neighbors? I mean, when does it go?
I'll have it's an adjacent property owner.
Yeah, the adjacent property owners.
Yeah, I mean, I do those 7 days before every.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I guess at this point, what we just need you to produce a corrected application.
Okay, and if it's okay, I'm not, this is not a fillable document, so I had to print it and print it out and fill it. So is it all right if I just bring it to you, Matt, on Thursday afternoon or?
Yeah, yeah, fine.
Okay, and if anybody, if you want to disseminate it and y'all see anything that you're like, well, I'm certainly happy to tweak it again. This is not, we're pretty flexible at the market.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm getting a cue here. Did you want to add anything, Dana? You had something before. Oh, okay. Okay. I'm getting a cue here that we need to vote to schedule our public hearing on the 19th as a separate thing. Am I correct, Jim? Is that
Well,
you
that's
asked
that.
anything?
Don't we have to schedule?
Now we're announcing it. I don't think you need to vote to hold a public hearing.
We need to vote to have a meeting though. On that date.
Yes, you do, but we've never done it that way before, but you surely could. But just recognize that the advertisements are going to be done.
Sure. Yeah, no, I know. That's why.
Let's do it. Let's,
Okay. So what I need is, would you like to make the motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to participate in the joint public hearing with the town council on May 19th, right?
At 7 or 6? 7 p.m.
For the special use permit application for the farmers market.
Okay, a second.
So I got Cindy.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so that's good. So we've now formally done that. I'm learning.
Thank you all for your help and your suggestions.
Our pleasure.
All right, Matt, I'm gonna hang. Thank
I
you.
was going to hang up on you first. See you later.
Bye-bye.
So at this point, the plan topics thing has already been done. Do you want to make a public comment? It's public comment time if you wanted to say something relating to Mr. Carbow's
I
presentation.
do, yeah, I'm a Maryland resident, so I can't be on the planning board. I wanted to, and perhaps sometime in the future. And one other reason I wanted to was because, that he came tonight. I'm hoping that you guys can create a guideline of what you want for Onancock instead of people coming and telling you what they want to do in Onancock. Because I just feel that it's sort of like we're continually having to, get the information and figure out if we really want that. And I loved what you said, Cindy, because Onancock does have things that are so special for it. And these developments are a dime a dozen everywhere. Salisbury's overrun. And he's a permit flipper is what he is. And we know that. So you have the power, to just, when you come back with your questions, maybe approach it from that standpoint of what do we want Onancock to develop into over the next 20 years? Because things happen quick and those people come in and, yours is the only place. He's down in Exmoor as well.
He's talking about, it's fun.
He wants to flip as many permits as he can. And that's his gig.
I am concerned. I have concerns. I'm absolutely not against workforce housing and I'm not necessarily against that location.
Yeah.
But I was concerned to see his face, there it's him again. I mean, that sounds stupid,
Yeah.
but I was concerned to see because we have this large project sitting out. Laura only knows what state it's in.
Yeah. It's for sale.
Yeah, the permit's for sale, basically,
Yeah.
the permitting.
And,
Yeah.
but we do need workforce housing, but how about
We do
we
clean
think,
up.
well, how much do we want? What's
We
our
did-
wish
we would
list
be
here,
there, huh?
you know?
No, I
And then
agree.
these guys can, buy in or not.
But
I agree with you on that, is that we have to call the tune, we really do.
We would make us part of that, you know.
The density, I think that lot is a good place to think about housing, actually,
Yeah.
R2 housing. But I'm concerned that density really gave me pause. Yeah.
do.
Yeah, yeah. So we will, believe me, we'll be continuing on with this. Thank you. So Matt, is there anything you want to add at this point and town manager report? Okay, commissioner comment. Comments? No comment? No comment, no comment?
Thank you to the public for attending the meeting and commenting.
Yes.
Interesting. I thank you all for your, your time and energy.
She's a little confused with the process.
And I want to thank you guys for bearing with me. Well, we're all on a steep learning curve on this, and this meeting really demonstrated that. And so bear with me as we wend our way along with some of the comments.
She's right. Is any neighborhoods that say, yeah, you know, let them come.
Yes, we're gonna see you all on the 19th at 7 o'clock. For what will hopefully be a short. Relatively
Sure
short.
that.
Okay. And I stick around because I stick around, but all right, so may I have a motion to adjourn?
I moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much, everybody, for hanging in there.